And so, yeah, so welcome to our Silver Wisdom interview with the awesome Dr. Manja Samantha Lawton, who I've had so much fun talking to recently that I've hardly been able to wait to bring her on here. So welcome, Dr. Manja. Thank you so much for being available, and thank you to everybody who's been able to turn up for the interview today. Yes, I've just come back from a 2-week break and lots of time for thoughts to drop into my consciousness. And Dr. Manja, I know that how we talked about this interview, that we're going to talk a lot about the cosmos and certain things that might not be that well known about what's happening out in space and how we're connected to that. And I wanted to start the ball rolling really by saying, it seems to me like we're getting to the culmination of a time of great disconnection. And that this time with the virus, with all the lockdowns and the masks and the rules of 6 and all of that, that we're experiencing greater and greater disconnection. And so I love the idea that we're going to explore like this hugeness of our universe and how we're connected within that. But I thought maybe we could start with just asking a question about how you took that leap, what prompted that leap from being a GP to becoming this I don't know, how do you describe yourself? A cosmonologist or something?
Sometimes say freelance astrophysicist, but that's not fair on that either. But yeah, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. It's good to see a few familiar faces as well. Yeah, so I was just thinking today how it's almost as if there's certain people on the planet, I've had a vision of this as well, who are actually from a future world. And we're actually here from a future paradigm, and we've been seeding it. So I was thinking what we're going to talk about today is almost like this is actually a future paradigm that is overlapping with the current. I mean, my website is, my brand and everything is Paradigm Revolution. And so it's almost like we are seeking that. But how I got into all this was actually even before I was a GP. And when I was in medical school, very first weeks of medical school, I went to what I thought was a yoga class, which was, stretching and things like that. That's what I thought I was going to get, when it was actually about raising your Kundalini. So in the very first few weeks of med school, suddenly I went from a complete skeptic I really didn't consider anything spiritual. I think like a lot of sort of scientific orientated people, I just thought all this was sort of superstitious nonsense. And then suddenly I had this Kundalini experience and was sort of connected to the all, and like the light just switched on, and I was suddenly running these parallel worlds of both being in medical school and actually having this spiritual journey sort of switch on. So that's how it all got started.
Well, wow to that, and also to how you're presenting this idea that there's this future world that's overlapping with our current world. And I'm quite sure so many of the people watching this are just thinking like, yeah, oh, fantastic. So I think I just want to hand over to you really and ask, what is it that you would love to share with us right now, and how can that knowledge, that new or deepened knowledge, serve us in this time right now, and help us to move or bring that future reality more anchored in the present?
Gosh. Well, I was thinking about how this really is an idea, like I was saying, from a future paradigm, and I think there's a lot of real uncertainty is getting so intensified in 2020. And to give people this sense of hope that in all of this doom and gloom and everything, there are these threads that are opening up rather than shutting down. And I think we really need that more than ever. When I did the show with David Icke's channel, for example, and I did the Hidden Science show, the remit that he gave me was go off and do something where you've been combative with skeptics. Well, I couldn't get any skeptics to come on. And no matter what I did, I couldn't do a show that was doom and gloom. Every single show was about opening up possibilities. And I think that's really what we need right now, to remind people that no matter what's going on, there are things that are opening up, there are things that discoveries being made, and there are things that are moving forward. So I think that's what I'd like to give people today, that there are these pockets where change is happening. And so it just seems to be so fundamental to me to think like that. And I don't mean to be a sort of Pollyanna character in doing that, but it's the truth. And that I actually did the show like that. And, you know, also just how it is in my life, because that is the truth. There are these pockets of new happening. So I wanted to share sort of the latest developments on the black hole principle theory that I've been working on for almost 20 years now, to show that there is this movement forward of knowledge, and there are people still out there doing great things, and we are moving towards new paradigms in life. And so this can open up rather than shut us down. And I think we need this more than ever now, that to bring some of that future paradigm into the now. So does that sound good?
Sounds fantastic.
Brilliant. So can I sort of bring people on as well? I'll just move as me onto the gallery view. So has anybody heard me talk before, or know anything about black holes or anything like that?
I know you.
Yeah, yes. Deborah. Yes, I've done did a talk for Deborah years ago, didn't I? Yeah. So mastery path. Gosh, that's going back a while. So has anybody got any sort of interest in like cosmology and how we're all connected and things like that? Yeah, brilliant. So I think a lot of people have this intrigue with space and how it's all connected, and who we are in this vast cosmos, and boy, do we need to feel that now. But yeah, so it kind of happened to me, these discoveries happened to me really by accident. I sort of wasn't setting out to find like a theory of everything or anything like that. I started out as a medical doctor, like Francesca said, during medical school. That's when my spiritual awakening happened. But I went on to be a GP, and I also trained in, to become a GP, I trained in pediatrics. So that's child health. And so I did 6 months in pediatrics. And it occurred to, and at the same time I was doing pediatrics, I, even despite all the on-calls and everything, I managed to fit in my training in bioenergy therapy. So I was training, and that was just gorgeous. I loved it. I did 6 months at the same time that I was doing pediatrics. And so I was realizing that, you know, tuning into the energies of people could have real changes, like real effects. And, you know, the only reason why doctors don't know about this is they don't know about physics. They don't know about quantum physics. They don't know about string theory and all these things that say that in mainstream physics that say reality is not solid. You know, doctors really stop at the molecule. They see the molecule as like this solid block that affects another solid block, and then that's all there is. And really, aren't we going through that at the moment with, you know, what's being talked about in the news all the time? We're talking about an old model of science where things are physical and they bash into something else that's physical and have an effect. And in medicine, as well as a number of sciences, we say that that's the only thing that's possible. But there's so much more, and there's so much more in physics. There's so much more at the cutting edge of biology as well, where people have been exploring fields and how they affect each other. I know Deborah is very up on this now with some really cutting edge technology. So people have been looking at resonance and things like that for many years. And It's like Harvard professors and people like that have actually done that, and often they've been shut down because obviously there's there's a lot of money in keeping this molecular model. But I just thought, when I was looking at these children in pediatrics, and a particular child came in who had leukemia at the age of 3, and he was just the most angelic child, and everybody around him just felt, I could see the effect he had on all the nurses and everything. And he just was so calming. And I just thought, we are going to take this beautiful child and subject this child to all these harsh cancer treatments. And I thought, but there's another way. There's another way. But the doctors don't know about that other way because they don't know about physics. And I thought the child is too young to do paradigm. What if we were to make that other paradigm really simple to understand, so that even doctors can understand it, and so that we can have another paradigm? So that's really where I set off, really as a physician, you know, to actually make things better for children, especially, you know, so that we had a choice in paradigm. But that's not how I've kind of ended up. So really, I wanted to write a book that was bringing the cutting edge of physics, that I was reading all this exciting stuff like variable speed of light theory, and, you know, obviously I mentioned string theory and things like loop quantum gravity and all these amazing things that say that reality is not solid, that can be connected across many distances, great distances, and all these things. I wanted to bring that into a book to make it so easy. And it was when I was writing the book that something quite extraordinary happened. And I don't know, some people who've read the book, hopefully it's arguable, but hopefully I did achieve that objective. If you've read the book, you'll agree that I do get that from a lot of people, that have broken it down and made the quantum physics and everything simple for people to understand. But as I was writing the book, it was like there was something that was on the tip of my tongue that I couldn't, you know, I couldn't sort of get to, you know, there was something going on. So I'll go into that in a second, but has anybody got anything to say at this point, Francesca? And
Oh, I'm just hanging on your every word, to be honest.
So is everybody okay with what I said so far? Brilliant. Okay, so do pop in if you've got a question or anything. So so yeah, so this is well, at the same time my life was going through huge amount of changes, because, you know, partly because of my burgeoning spirituality, and you know, I was suddenly living a very multi-dimensional life, and then going into work as a GP, which is like, you know, I would do sessions in bioenergy in my home clinic, and then you know, sort of change into a multi-armed goddess, and then go into so it was very much, I kept it very separate, but I was very, you know, like living a double life here. So a lot of changes went in my life, which meant that I had more time to dedicate to writing the book and exploring these ideas. And it was during this time that idea that you know, that wouldn't leave me alone, that there was something more that I didn't know about, just kept coming to me. And so I was out walking in the woods, and I decided to sit on the branch of a tree. And something that I remembered, that my healing teacher showed me a video of the cosmologist Brian Swim, who you might have heard of. But on this little snippet of a video, he said, we never tune into the rotation of the Earth. You know, the Earth is always rotating, and we never think about it. And so just on the branch of the tree, I just tuned into the rotation of the Earth. And then suddenly I saw this this insight that has, you know, just led to so much in my life. And that was that the, you know, black holes, which we often are told are these guzzling monsters that take in everything around at even light. Black holes are not the guzzling monsters, that they are the creative points of the universe. And that was the big insight. And I would say I saw it, but actually I was in it, because I think all the really good major insights in science and in the world are when human consciousness actually gets a glimpse and unites with universal consciousness, even, you know, a fraction and just momentarily. But that's where all the big insights come from. You know, if you look at the dreams of Einstein, if you look at the visions of Niels Bohr and people like that, you know, big insights have come like that. They've come through. Would you agree? Was that something that you...
You know, I get this sense, Dr. Manji, when I hear something that's truth, like I want to cry. It moves me really deeply. And I got that then thinking of you sitting on that branch and really getting that incredible insight. And just really wanting to say, you know, every time we're drawn to doing something that might seem simple, or we're not working or whatever, that to follow that prompt, because if you just gone, oh, how silly to spend some time sitting on the branch of a tree, right? You might not have got that at that point. So yes, I love this.
And it's also wonderful that it was an oak tree as well, really gorgeous old oak tree. And, you know, and who better to teach me about gravity? You know, a tree that actually is constantly defying gravity. So,
you know, actually, that the Druids believe that some of the oaks are teacher oaks.
Wow.
And so I'm quite sure that would have been the teacher oak.
Oh my goodness, wow, yes, definitely. And I'm sure a lot of you sort of feel very connected to trees as well. So yeah, the insight that I got was that basically all of black holes at the center of galaxies and elsewhere, and this is whilst I was pondering some of the scientific data, what's really happening is they're sources of infinite light. What's happening is that we can't see most of the black hole because it's not in our reality, not on what we call our 3D reality. It's most of it is actually beyond the speed of light. And so if you remember, I actually said said earlier that there was a variable speed of light theory. So actually physicists themselves at the time were starting to question this idea that nothing could go faster than the speed of light. And there's a scientist called Joan Magajero who wrote a book on this and said that actually Einstein said that nothing with mass can go faster than the speed of light, but light itself is massless. So we're talking about a region of the universe that is pure light, but it's not the light that we're used to seeing. And I think that's the sort of spiritual light that people see in meditation and, you know, in near-death experiences and all those things. So there's a boundary of our world. So most of the black hole is actually beyond that boundary. And what's happening is the light is coming in from infinity, and it's going round in a spiral, and it gets to the edge of our reality where it splits, and that edge of our reality is at the speed of light, what I now call the perception horizon instead of the event horizon. The because it's everything's beyond our perception, that beyond that, well, not our normal perception, mystics can go beyond that. So then the light then splits into a particle of matter and its opposite, a particle of antimatter. So that's what's happening at the edge of our of black holes. And then they also form together again. So the two particles which are opposite of each other, but also at the same time, they're just kind of, you know, they're still light, but it's kind of like they're pretending to be split, as it were. They sort of form again, and they form light again. So this sort of breathing process is going on at the edge of a black hole. And so that electron, that particle of matter, you can say electrons and positrons are the usual form that it takes, but it takes lots of forms. But say that electron, say it's an electron, that then goes on to form our, what we call our reality. So those particles of matter go on to form our reality. And so this breathing process happens, and as they come together, they form a gamma ray burst. So that's where we see these powerful gamma ray bursts happening all over the cosmos. So the more that you look into this, and more that you see the evidence for this, these fountains of antimatter coming out of the Milky Way. There's matter and antimatter that are spiraling out of the center of galaxies. There's this breathing that's going on at the center of galaxies. So it's this breathing. I call it the dance of Shiva, the breath of the Tao, because the breath is never, the breathing process, there's never any set point. The point is the dance, so the breathing at the edge. So that's why we see these gamma ray bursts coming out of the center of galaxies that are coming to us in seemingly a random pattern, because it's this breath that's happening. And sometimes it happens very quickly, and sometimes it happens very slowly. And astrophysics cannot figure out why this is happening, because of course their paradigm is explosion. So their paradigm is everything is hitting each other. So as I said at the beginning, solid things hit each other. That's our current paradigm. And that's the current paradigm we're talking about with the health things that are going on at the moment. It has connections with everything. So their paradigm is the only way such amazing gamma ray bursts can be formed is if something was to explode, like a star, or things to hit each other, or black holes gobble each other. Can you hear the language? Or neutron stars, having a good bash on each other. When actually it's grace, it's this infinity at the center of the black hole that spirals down and effortlessly creates this wonderful process. So Susie, go.
Hi. Thank you very much. It's such a privilege to hear you, Manjir. I've been watching your work about the South Pole of Mars and the fact that there is a spiral pulsing going on, the UV light coming out of Mars, that is a pulsation, not an explosion. And scientists don't seem to be able to understand why this should be. I stumbled across it particularly because I'm developing a pitch for Saudi Arabia for an electric light show that we're hoping to do there. And our whole premise is based on the idea of that mankind's made of energy, we're electric, there's electricity in our DNA. And when I was Googling all of that, I came across your work on the South Pole of Mars, which seemed to me to be really interesting because in fact, Mars has been closer to us as a planet this week than it'll be for the next 35 years. And I wonder if you have a theory as to what these pulses of UV light spiraling out of Mars is all about.
Brilliant, thank you. That's a great question, because that's what I'm about to go on to. Because the next part of the insight was that actually I felt really, really sleepy when I was out walking in the woods, and it's like I had to go to sleep. And so I came back home and went to sleep. And when I woke up, I realized I'd been dreaming that the same process, this light antimatter matter process, happens in atoms. And I was in it. I was actually in the atomic process. And those are the two pieces I needed to realize that this pattern goes throughout the whole of reality. From planets to stars to everything. And I was just sort of like, oh, right. So I just needed the two ends of the spectrum, as it were, to realize it was a whole lot. And when in my dream, I realized that like the work of people like Paul Dirac, who said that there were positrons and antimatter in atoms. And that if you think about atoms, when you do your high school science and you hear that electrons jump from quantum, they make these quantum leaps, they jump, but in those quantum leaps there's also this it leaves this sort of antimatter hole. Do you hear about that? Yeah. And when the antimatter and the matter come together in the atom, it forms light, and we use that light all the time. We get in neon signs and things like that. When you think about it, it's there already. We actually have the science, we're just not thinking of it in the same way. And also with the radioactivity, you're giving off gamma rays. So you're giving off gamma rays, you're giving off electrons, just like in a black hole. So when you look at what happens in a so that's why I'm calling it the black hole principle, because it's happening at every single level. So when you see the light coming to the edge of the perception horizon, it splits off into that electron and positron. So the antimatter goes into the antimatter region, which we'll talk about another time, I think. But the electron we can see as electrons streaming out of the black hole at just below the speed of light. And why they've done that is because they've only just reached our dimension, so we can only just detect them. Now that same pattern you can see quite easily going on, as Susie just said, on Mars. You can see on stars, you can see, so you see the same fluctuating pattern that seems to us to be quite random. Sometimes it'll be quite fast, sometimes it could take years even to give off a gamma ray burst or something like that. But it's the same pattern going throughout reality. And so we see this in the pulsing of the pole of Mars. So the other pattern that you see this happening in is, have you ever seen a picture of a black hole and it's got two jets coming out of it? Have you ever seen that? I mean, often they're artist impressions, but you've got two jets. And you're thinking, well, it's supposed to be a black hole. Why is it giving off jets? Everything's supposed to be sucked in. What's going on? And they'll say, well, as things are going down the plug hole, the black hole starts burping. Seriously, that's actually one of the things they say. And as it starts burping, it gives off these two jets. But it makes no sense from a point of view of angular momentum and things like this. And I have been in physics conferences to hear the mathematics. I know I've taken one for the team here, I've gone to very sort of boring mathematics lectures, to actually be amongst a physicist, to find out that from the maths perspective, it makes no sense for the jets to be very concentrated and at right angles from the so-called accretion disk. It's actually the creation disk. But, so basically they don't know why these jets are coming out and why they're coming out at the speed of light. They're coming out because most of the action is actually going on beyond the speed of light. This is the last stage of some higher dimensional geometry of creation. And as the geometry of creation is occurring, the very last stage is what we see. And we see these jets at right angles. Now, you can't get that consistency of right angles unless there is some geometry going on involved with this. I mean, how could you? There's got to be some hyperspace geometry that's creating this consistent bipolar jet pattern. So we see this in Mars. We see this sort of spiraling in Mars. At every single level, it's a different expression. We see this on our planet too. So we see, do you know what the bipolar jet is called on the planet Earth? You might have gone to visit it near the north, in places like Iceland and places like that.
The Northern Lights?
Yes. So I don't know if you know this, but you can't have the aurora borealis without the aurora australis at the other side. This is bipolar jets. And we're told that, the sun is creating it. The sun is they're intermittent jets coming out of our very planet, as on so many other planets. So we can start to think of climate and earth changes, not just in terms of our planet, but cross-planetary climate, cross-planetary weather. Once you understand that weather systems are the same basic principle, no matter which planet or even star you're on, it's just expressions at different levels. You can get a huge understanding of what's going on. So according to what I'm saying here, we should be able to see the black hole principle on Earth quite a lot. Well, guess what? It's happening all around. So, sorry, shall I stop again for you to come in, Francesca, before I go into that?
No, No, please carry on, except we've got a couple of questions that I definitely want to make sure get asked.
Oh, okay. So I'll just, because the Earth level is where it's really, really amazing. And on Earth, just above our heads in the 90s, we actually started to put out weather satellites and things like that, and look at storms and things like that, way above our heads. And so we're looking at storms from above for the first time. And what they found, I think you can guess now. Every time there's a thunderstorm, there are gamma ray bursts. Storms are mini black holes in the Earth's atmosphere. Now, they weren't expecting that, but this theory absolutely predicts that. Storms are mini black holes. So what you get in a thunderstorm, you get gamma ray bursts. So they're called elves. They've given them all names of the fairy realm. You've got the sprites in a thunderstorm, and you've also got the fast-moving electrons that are just coming. Do you remember I said as soon as they slow down to this dimension, you get these fast-moving electrons that are coming out of black holes? We have a name for that in thunderstorms. Anyone care to guess? Okay, we normally call that lightning. Yeah, so we have that lightning, and people have also detected antimatter lightning coming from storms. So we have all the elements of the black hole principle. And I don't know if you know this, but there are so many storms going on the planet, and I've written blogs on a lot of this, so if you want to go into detail on any of these subjects. And the story we tell children is, oh, it's like static electricity, you know, like when you rub a balloon on your head and it does it. It's like, we need to stop telling these children these lies. And there's never been an experiment to prove that. Yet, because we don't have an explanation for something that's so common, like a thunderstorm. Then 2018, we found gamma ray bursts in hurricanes. Have you ever looked at a hurricane and looked at the spiral shape and thought, gosh, why is that the same as a galaxy? Because it is the same as a galaxy. It's got gamma ray bursts, and it's got antimatter, and they found antimatter as well. And of course, we've known for some years that hurricanes have lightning. So all of these things are the same pattern going all the way down. There's something that we missed out on this, and that is thunderstorms have another element. Water. Yeah, we often get rain, and you're probably thinking to me and saying to me at the moment, there's no way, Manjia, there's no way that black holes produce water. Well, guess what? We do see black holes producing water all over space. The largest body of water ever found is actually deep in space. We're talking about massive, massive bodies of water. And what have we found on all these planets? Water is being found on all these planets because the planets themselves are producing water. Every single planet has basically got an interior black hole dynamo, just like our planet. It's been a long-held mystery. Why is there so much water on the Earth? Because it's producing the water. It wasn't some asteroid that deposited it many years ago. Otherwise, it would have all gone by now. And we were told about the water cycle, and it does this and it does that. Well, it's not enough. So basically, that's why you have the ice at the poles, because that's where most of the water is being produced. But there's many, many different points on the Earth. You probably heard about it. We often bottle it, and near mountains, we often bottle it and drink it and sell it, because it's this amazing water that comes up as hot springs, as geysers, as all these things. These are the black hole principle in action on our planet. So we see the same things happening on moons in space, on planets in space. It's the same principle. So what we'll expect to see is intermittent ejections, like a geyser, like, the gamma ray bursts that happen all over space are intermittent. We'll expect to see antimatter, and we'll expect to see fast moving electrons. So that's the theory in a nutshell.
Yeah, fantastic, Dr. Mangia, absolutely fantastic. And I'm just thinking, is there a correlation with the black hole principle in our brains?
Oh gosh. Well, there have been some studies that show that there's, because I think that some of the brain, like some activity, for example, before an epileptic fit, there's shown to be like a lot of electron activity in the brain. So, and that can sometimes be correlated with solar activity. So that's the other thing. Every single black hole is connected because the singularity at the center of the black hole, the infinity, is the same infinity, expressing itself at different ways. So basically, the solar activity has been shown to correlate with like things like epilepsy. So yes, our atoms, our chakras, are also spirals which create us. So at every single level, this is going on.
Fantastic. Thank you. So can I open up the floor to some questions, Manju? Is that okay?
Yes, yeah.
I'd like to start with Deborah. Deborah, do you want to ask your question directly to Manju?
Yeah, sure. Manju, how can we enlighten more doctors in natural ways of healing, like through diet, nutrition, essential oils, homeopathy, microcurrents, meditation, because like we have this prescribing model and it's automatically, oh, right, yeah, I've got a pill for that, or people want a pill for that. But how can we sort of, get more doctors on board that we need to get back to the root cause and look at what's happening?
I think that's a good question. I think it's very interesting having been on the inside of that profession, because I think a lot of it has to do with emotions. Because if doctors are not emotionally ready to partner with people, and because they'll see it as a handover of power, and that somebody is attacking them, or sort of attacking their power base. And so it's about doing the emotional work to get to a point where we're not being in combat with each other. And because if you come in and say those things to a GP who's not aware of all these things, they'll see it as a ridiculous attack on their power. And they've been to med school for 5-6 years and done all this training. Why should you topple that power after they put in all that hard work? So it's like, I think it's not a simple question. There's a lot of depth to why a lot of GPs are very resistant. I've seen GPs ridicule homeopathy in front of me. What did I hear? Gay axe murderers. Yeah. That's what a doctor called homeopaths in front of me. And so I think it's not about going to doctors and say, please change. I think we all have to move into this new paradigm of science. And, the physics is there, the evidence is there. Everything I've said today is based on data from actual telescopes. The data is there. This is not the insight. Maybe an astrophysicist won't tell you, but the actual data is coming to us like that, and they just don't know what to do with it. So I think if we as people actually take on this new paradigm and do the work and do the emotional work, and then we can partner. But my blunt opinion is the whole system is so entrenched, and it's coming from a certain paradigm, a certain route of allopathic medicine, that I never mixed it myself, and I don't think you can mix it, because they're very two different ways of seeing the world. So I think we have to really move into a new era where we're going to go from the ground up with a new paradigm, a new science, and go forward with that. So if enough people are doing that, like yourself, and moving into this new era of resonance and things, and I think that's the way forward.
Beautiful.
That's great. It's like a bottom-up approach. It's like we are the change that we want to see. We do it ourselves. We teach other people about getting to the root cause, not just trying to put a sticking plaster on something.
Yes.
And then build it from there.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Deborah. There's a couple of questions here from Marilyn. Marilyn, are you able to ask these questions directly to Manjir?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I am. Yes. Hi. I'm fascinated. My husband was a physicist, I said, and he was a meteorologist. And on our first night out, he explained to me quantum physics. How about that for a first date? But his specialism was interplanetary atmospheres, and I thank my lucky stars for his work that taught me a lot. I'm fascinated because I have a GP who's very open, and she knows I'm a naturopathic nutritionist, and she said, I know you'll research your condition and come back to me. Well, what happened is when Rob died, my heart went into a very strange rhythm, which is called Brugada. It's not a rhythmic, it's called saddleback. You may know about it. It's very interesting, and it started me looking at the electrical properties of the heart, spiral forces, how the blood flows, how the heart is an electrical, but it's not electrical, just electrical. And I wonder whether you could point me, because here is a person who I think, if I went back and did some explaining, would be open to some quantum theory, and I am a psychologist. I'm fascinated by emotion and the vagal nerve and the speed of how things travel, the effect of electrolytes on our body. But I'm struggling with all these pieces, and I wonder whether I need to read your book. But what would you recommend that I do to research more about this? Talk to her? Can I send this video to her? I mean, I'm sort of thinking, oh my god, this is fascinating. But I know that I've landed myself in a bit of a quagmire.
Sure. Well, I'm definitely, not going to go into, any sort of cardiology advice today. Sorry, but I mean, I think, maybe you might find the HeartMath Institute of interest. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Oh, I have. And in fact, what led me into this is that I was an HR director, and I happened to go to my institute meeting, and they had a HeartMath person there. Oh, wow. And I happened to be sitting in the front, and they said they wanted a volunteer. I'm a yoga teacher now, so I do pranayama, I do meditation. It's a sort of daily practice.
I think from a higher level, I think also the body is created in this black hole principle way. You see that spiral and the aorta and everything. So the body is also following this. So from a high, and I agree with you. I think the electrical activity of the heart is absolutely fascinating, and I don't think we think enough about it. And it's like, why is it doing this? The same, if you look at the heartbeat of stars have a heartbeat, and they actually have a signal that is identical to the ECG. So have a look at, if you Google heartbeat of stars, you'll find my blog on this. So have a look, but I think it's a very vast subject. So I won't be able to give you individual.
No, but that's lovely. Just to finalise that story, at the CIPD meeting, I put on I did the HeartMath breathing pattern, and my heartbeat, I knew the saddleback, no one else would have known, and I didn't tell the group, but as I was breathing, I could see the heartbeat normalising.
Wow. Brilliant.
Wow, fantastic. And actually, Marilyn, you had another question here too. You said, oh my God, can I channel my late husband who read physics at Imperial and was a meteorologist and specialized in interplanetary atmospheres?
Gosh.
Well, I said, I somehow feel that he would be able to shed some light on some of this.
Gosh, yes, I'm sure he would have been absolutely, you know, maybe his presence is here, but he would be exactly the sort of person that, you know, and as you say, he probably has done so much pioneering work that's enabled the insights that we've got today and the data that we've got today. So thank you.
Thank you. I've got a question, Manjir, that comes out of this. Is you were talking about how black holes are actually creative rather than these gobbling monsters, and so if we've got that principle going on in our own bodies, does that mean that we're fully creative, and does it also mean that maybe nothing is impossible?
Yes, we are fully creative. It's not about a big bang creating everything 15 billion years ago. Everything is creative at every single level. It's a whole fractal universe. So we are creating at every single level. And where the choice, where the possibilities are beyond the speed of light. So that's where we're choosing. That's where we're choosing the moment of our birth and our passing and everything. Those are the moments that, you know, everything in our lives is chosen by what is traditionally called the higher self. So it's the beyond the speed of light self, basically. And we're all multidimensional. We've all got different levels to who we are. If you want to, I did say, didn't I, Francesca? I've got a whole course on this, how you can apply the black hole principle to your own life, how to take it beyond the law of attraction, because the law of attraction is based on quantum physics. So if you want to take it to the next level, the black hole principle level, and understand what we call living from C squared, so that's the antimatter region, how the matter, antimatter, light all interact and will affect you. And I've done an offer for people in the silver tent. So if you go to Dr. Manjir and drmanjir.com/SD for Simply Divine, and you will see the page there. And if you go through and use the coupon code SILVER, you'll get 25% off, and that's to the end of this year.
Wow.
So that's an offer I've created just for the silver tent.
Thank you so much.
So that it's a whole course with it's got about 30 modules in it. They're short, but they've got videos, diagrams, everything. How to use the black hole principle in your own life, your emotions, law of attraction, all of these things, how it explains the chakras, or, you know, so when it comes to the personal level, the Simply Divine course, and it's broken down, and even how quantum physics explains tarot, and, you know, it's got a lot of the distant healing, vibrational healing, all these things is in that course. So it's really breaking down in a simple way how all the science of spirituality works.
Brilliant. So what we'll do, probably Steffi, I'll probably ask Steffi to do this, is let's get the link and let's put it in the information. So below this Facebook Live, and when we put the recording in Silver Synergy, let's put it in there so that it's easy for everybody to access. So Steffi, can you grab that? Oh, thank you. That's excellent.
I think I've just read I think it's in capitals, but just yeah, you've got the landing page right. So if you go through to the actual checkout page, and then put in the coupon, and you can pay in whatever currency you've got, US dollars, pounds, and euros. So that's
black hole currency.
It's back and in installments as well if you want to. I know everybody's so that's the end of the year. So that will break it down a lot further about how black holes are related to your chakras and what it can do for you, and understanding free will and choice, and, you know, what it means to live from the C squared future line and things like that. C squared is the antimatter region, how your C squared and your antimatter and your aura are connected, and all of these things. So it goes into a lot more detail.
Really exciting.
Brilliant. Yeah, I look forward to it. You also join on that. You'll also join my monthly, for a year, you'll get membership to the Conscious Science Club, We meet on a monthly basis on Zoom and from people all around the world. So if you do join, I really look forward to seeing you on there as well. Yeah, so it's not, you won't be just left alone with the material. You can come and ask questions. There's a forum, everything. So yeah,
brilliant. I really look forward to that, like taking off in our silver community and being, you know, being an integral part of how we all evolve. And there was another question from Deborah here, saying that she knows that you channel Mary Magdalene, and is any of your work on black holes channeled? I'd like to just also include, is there anything on the Magdalene work that you're doing that you just briefly want to let us know about? Like, we've only got a few minutes, but
gosh.
but
also we didn't mention the diamonds part, because that was, so very quickly, you know, how to put this in a nutshell. I started to realize that black holes are also the source of what we call fossil fuels. So because if they were really fossil fuels like trees and things like that, we wouldn't be able to find them on other planets. But we can find oil and coal and methane and kerosene and all these things out in space. So I started to research all this. And then also even diamonds that you get on the Earth, you get them in, do you remember I talked about the bipolar jets? Where you get diamonds on Earth in these kimberlite pipes is very, very, so they're actually coming up from the Earth. And we're told that coal creates diamonds, that aren't we? But strangely, in space, you can find diamonds raining down on other planets. You've got stars that have diamonds just in their field. You've got a whole star that's solid diamond. I'm sure Marilyn Monroe would have been delighted, but you know, it's like, so that's where the diamonds come from. They're not only creating the electrons as well, they're creating what we call so-called fossil fuels and water. That's the source. So it's a big topic. If you want to have a look at that, it's drmangia.com /fossil. I've done a whole long article on that. But what were the questions there about Mary Magdalene? Yes, if you want to have a look at yes, it is. In terms of channeling, it's like, aren't we always channeling? You know, all the time we're bringing through thoughts. So yes, the black hole principle, would you call it a channeling? My consciousness was in the universe and saw a glimpse of how the universe works. And in terms of channeling, do I bring people through? And yes, I do that all the time. And I think that's how I got to the mystical state where I was ready to receive this. But because I've had a scientific and medical background, I was able to put that with the particle physics and the data that I was able to put the two together. So the mystic and the scientist are completely combined with me. So about 2001, Mary Magdalene started to come to me and give me visions and things like that. And I'm disappearing a little, aren't I? Well, I've come a bit forward. So I'm delighted to say that, you know, that book is coming on a lot. There's a lot of research that went into that, the Magdalene prophecies. So if you want to follow that on Facebook, you can get updates on that. So yes, is there something else? Oh yeah, Punk Science is the book, and you can also go to my blog on if you go to punkscience.com, and the blog posts are all at the bottom of the page there. You can actually start to look through all the archive. I've done a lot of videos, blogs, everything. Punk Science TV coming out on that. We've got a movie coming out on this. So there's a book, the TV, and the forthcoming movie, membership sites, another book. So and of course the Genius Group as well. And then we've got the Simply Divine course, which you've got a special offer on. So hopefully that's a lot to keep everybody occupied.
Wow, Manju, I'm just sort of tempted to say, do you ever sleep? Well, that's Solar's paradigm. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Well, before we finish, and look at that, I mean, you know, on the dot, Manju, I've got to say it's pretty amazing. Does anybody have a last question for Manju, or just something that they would like to say as a thank you? Yes, Ellen.
I just wanted to say it's so amazing. I did not know what you were going to speak about. And I was up in the middle of the night writing about atoms and energy. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll write part of the post, the beginning. It's the middle of the night, and I'm laying in bed thinking of atoms and the molecular structure of anything and everything. How tiny atoms are. We can't see them. A 10th million of a millimeter. But they make up everything. An atom is 99.9999% energy. If you think of it, we are like living supernovas, beings of energy, and energy is the creative building blocks of everything. And it's all communicating. How incredible is this? It's hard to wrap your head around. Our bodies are nothing more than this energy bundled up into atoms, all talking to each other, keeping everything in place. Every cell, organ, all communicating, every system functioning in perfect order. The heart, the lungs, the kidneys, the liver, the pancreas, the brain, muscles, skins, joints. I could go on, listing it all and breaking it down. And then think of every other living system in the world around us. The earth is teeming with life form. It's phenomenal. Then it breaks down to even more life forms, bacteria, etc. There is no end, and even chairs, tables, watches, clothes, houses, etc., etc. It's all atoms, energy held in place by the frequencies, the vibrations, the resonating its form. Maybe it all sings in such beautiful harmony as it talks to each other. Everything in creation has its own frequency. Everything resonates. It all vibrates. I wonder if it all has cilia, little antennas, senders, receivers. Anyway, I go on and on with this. But I go, because it was like I was stepping out into the universe and seeing the matrix of how everything is connected. Everything is connected. And how we're just living packets of energy. And that's what allows us to step into the place of creation. Once we make that connection. But anyway, just going to start. I just thought it was so amazing. You're talking about this, and I've been up in the middle of the night writing in my own little way about it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. That's absolutely amazing. Well, perfect end.
That's beautiful. Well, Manja, I hope we'll see you again in here, because there's just so much, and so much of your wisdom and your excitement and inspiration and passion is just so awesome to experience. That's been a real joy having you here. So thank you so much. Please come again.
Thank you so much. Absolutely.
Beautiful. So thank you. And then I'll send you the link when this is all live as well.
Thank you.
Brilliant. So anybody before we go, or are we complete? I think we must be complete.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for great questions.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.